this is Candace. Welcome back to day 78 of my 100-day health challenge. Happy Monday. Hope you have had a good either work day or school day or whatever it may be, and a great start to your week. Today has been pretty good overall. It has been, as I'm in the recovering stage from being sick last week, I'm having to kind of do a balance of catch up and take it easy too. So today I did pretty well overall. I did get to cook some, and I was able to do some just relaxing things as well. So I'll share a little bit about that and just kind of check in and tell you how today went. So I did have, so as far as the sickness recovery, it's interesting. It's always a balance to strike between catching up on all the things you missed, whether that be work, school, just with family, friends, whatever it may be. And so, but then also balancing that out with continuing to rest, because the thing is that your immune system is not fully up and running again. You're still getting over some of the symptoms. Sometimes you still carry over a little bit of this just drained and exhausted. And so, you got to strike that balance and find a careful way to prioritize. So what I like to do, and kind of what I did today, actually I did it some yesterday too, I made a list of priorities of things that have to get done, things that I'd really like to get done, and then things that it would be nice to get done, but it's not the end of the world if I don't do them right now. And so I just made a list, top to bottom kind of priorities of what had to be done today, what could be done, what had to be done but could be done tomorrow. And then I just balanced that by saying, okay, I'm going to try to do at least 2 things off this list today. And if I need to do more, I will. But I'm not going to push it and overwork myself and just get myself sick again. So that's what I did. I would recommend that anytime you're sick and having to catch up. I did work some while I was sick, but it was also really hard when I was having to sleep and rest a lot. And also just when you're either, no matter, depending on what your symptoms are, sometimes you can't work because you're physically dealing with some kind of symptom. That could be a severe cough. It could be vomiting. It could be drainage where you just can't, you're having trouble with the breathing or whatever. I mean, it could be anything that symptoms can physically stop you from working sometimes. Sometimes it can be brain fog, like you just are so exhausted or you're just so drained of clarity and focus. So, I mean, those are legitimate reasons to not have worked while you were sick. It's great if you can do a few things here and there to keep yourself kind of up and running and on task with things, but you need to be resting too. But the same thing applies when you go back to work. Sometimes I think we feel like the day that we go back to work, we have to do everything. We have to catch up on everything. I know I felt some of that pressure today. Even just checking my emails last week, like towards the end of the week, I hadn't been able to check them as much through the week. And so I had some that I was catching up on like Saturday and Sunday. And it was just, even those put this pressure of like, oh my gosh, I got to do this and this and this and this. And why am I so behind? And then having to realize, well, I mean, literally I had my play week. I was sick before that. We had Thanksgiving break, and then I was sick. So it's like, you have to take it a day at a time. So I did write out a priority list, and I did get some things done. I do have still lots to do. But I think that's the thing, is just striking that balance. So I made sure to give myself a challenge to at least complete 2 things off that list. And if it was a definite have to, then yeah, that had to go first, because I did need to do some of those things today. But then not pressuring myself to basically exhaust myself trying to be perfect and catch up, when it's really just basically, I'm going to get behind again if I make myself sick. So strike that balance. Then I did have some trouble sleeping last night. Whenever you're sick, I don't know about you, but I think it's pretty common in general, but I definitely have this issue of my sleep cycle gets so out of whack, because either I am having to sleep basically all through the day and the night, or sometimes I'm sleeping through the day because I'm so drained and I have all these nasty symptoms and stuff, but then I can't sleep as well at night. Or sometimes it's just restless all day, all night. Like if you have a cough or whatever it may be. So sometimes we get so out of whack in our sleep schedules that we have to then work to get back to a regular schedule. I will say that yesterday helped some because I was able to rest on Saturday, but actually be up and about. And then I was able to go to bed. I still had trouble sleeping, but I was able to go to bed and actually get up earlier at a more normal time for church, and then stay out a little bit into the afternoon. And then I did take a nap, but it wasn't a huge one. And then I was still able to get to bed. Again, that wasn't ideal because I didn't sleep the best last night. It took me until at least probably 11:30 to 12 to get to sleep. And then it was a restless up and down sleep. And so I don't think I think the last time I looked at the clock was around 2 something. I don't even know if that's officially when I went to sleep. I just know that I was tossing and turning and occasionally had to look at the clock and just be like, oh my gosh, what time it is, or is it? And, but I did get to sleep in a little bit. Sleep in is relative because, I mean, it depends on your job and everything, but mine is, to the point where sleep in was not like super sleeping in. It was just a little bit, which was better than nothing. But I did have to then come home early a little bit because I was so drained and exhausted still. I mean, this whole day I've just been drained and exhausted. And so I did have to go sleep some when I got home. And so I tried to balance that though. I read some articles before about, I mean, everybody argues about what's the ideal amount of time to sleep when you're napping. And some would say like 10 to 12 minutes. Some would say 12 to 15. I read a couple articles one time that talked about like REM cycle and how it was either better to do like 30 minutes, like if you needed a longer nap, to do 30 minutes before you really entered into the main part of that, or an hour and a half, because that's kind of when you cycle through the deepest part of sleep. And so it's not as bad to get up after the hour and a half and you don't feel as draggy. Now, again, there are all kinds of different opinions and research on this, but I did read some articles from some good sources. This was back a long time. But what I found in my personal life is that actually works for me, is to do either a half hour or an hour and a half. And so that's just worked for me. I don't know, person to person's different. We're all unique. Again, research shows different things for different people and conditions and different things. I mean, there are some universal rules. I mean, less is better when you're napping, just so that you don't do all your sleep then and then get off later in the day. But I would say that kind of experiment with that and see what works best for you. Same thing with nighttime sleep. Some people do well with 6 hours, some do better with 8 hours. It just depends. I think one of the things that I found also that helped when I was reading about it was to test your own, sometimes we can all get out of sleep patterns and actually have to work to get back into a better one. But if you can pick a day where you know you don't have to get up the next morning at a specific time, so you don't have to set an alarm, because it's best if you, so this is testing to see some, I found this helped with me. I don't know for sure if it'll help with you. I did read this in, I can't remember, it was a sleep study, sleep journal, something like that. It's been back a while. I probably have a copy of it somewhere. I just don't remember where. But what it was is to test your particular style of sleeping and what works best for you. What it was is you needed to pick a day, usually like a Friday to Saturday or Saturday to Sunday, depending on what your schedule looks like. But picking a day where you don't have to get up, so that you don't have to set an alarm, and then going to bed when you would, and like what you do is you do ideally when you'd want to go to bed, so like 8 or 9, or, you know, even if you get like, you wanted to stick with your regular schedule so that you could see how best you did. So if you're a night owl and you go to bed at 12 to 1, it was okay to do that. But then the thing is you did not set an alarm and you just let yourself sleep. And you wanted to see, now again, there are conditions that can make this not the most accurate, because example, if you've had an exhausting week and suddenly you're doing this. So the best would be is if you're like on a break and you have like a 3-day break or something, or a 2-day break, and you can catch up with all the rest and not be so exhausted. So you're kind of in a general healthy state. And then do this test for yourself, because then you're not, you know, so exhausted that you're sleeping 11 hours and thinking that's normal, because that's not necessarily normal. Or on the flip side of that, you got so much sleep before that you're only sleeping like 5 hours and now you think that's all you need all the time. So it's best to be kind of in a state of where you're not exhausted, you're not too energetic, and that you can, again, test this by going to sleep at your kind of usual time, not setting an alarm, and then just seeing how long you sleep, because you may sleep naturally 6 hours and get up and feel great. versus someone else who needs an 8-hour sleep, or someone who does do 7 or 5 or whatever. And adults have different sleep patterns too than, say, kids or young adults. So I would say that that's been helpful for me, but again, you can kind of do what you want. But I can tell when I'm off my sleep pattern. And so what I'm trying to do is let myself, like, I'm trying to slowly up the bedtime a little bit, because right now I'm at that stage where I'm so drained and exhausted, but I'm so restless and still fighting some of the symptoms that I'm having to nap. But then I'm also having to make sure I'm going to bed at a good time so that I can get up at a good time and do things. And so I'm just slowly working to get that back into a normal space. I don't want to force that all at once. And I also don't want to be kind of saying, oh, I don't need any rest, because I do. I'm recovering still, and I'm extremely exhausted today still. So anyways, that was like a kind of thing on rest and sleep, and especially after you're recovering and things, but even just like on a general basis, how to kind of see where you're at on things. As far as supplements go, I've done really well with that today. I did end up taking them probably a little closer together, almost like a brunch sort of thing, because I didn't eat an early breakfast and I didn't really eat a late lunch. So it was kind of like they were a little close, and they were almost the exact same because I didn't really have breakfast. That's one thing that wasn't great today. I didn't really have breakfast because I forgot to grab my yogurt out of the fridge at the school. And so then I'd already gone upstairs, and I was like, okay, I need to finish this stuff before class. So I didn't want to go back down and do that while I was trying to write stuff on the board and things. And I didn't eat really breakfast very well. I did have a kind of a brunch thing, and then like a later lunch snack sort of stuff. So then I took my supplements. So they were a little closer than I would have liked, but I still did I had a good lunch, good brunchy thing. I had my supplements. I drank a lot more water today, which was good, because I had been trying to hydrate while I was sick, to help recovery and just to stay hydrated. But I had still not done the best, so I did much better today. I got to cook this evening, so I just Pinterest. So again, my general style of cooking, I have cookbooks and I do use them. I have family recipes, I do use them. I have done my own recipes and written them out, and I use them. But sometimes when I'm just want to get something done and just want to be able to cook, like, because today where I was so exhausted, I was like, I need something that's going to be fast, use what I have that needs to be used, and that can give me dinner and just be done with it. So in this case, sometimes I will Google a recipe, sometimes I will Pinterest it. I like Pinterest because I can just have it on my phone and look at it. I used to not have the app on my phone because I didn't have enough storage space, and now I have plenty, so I have it on my phone. But I like to do that. Sometimes I will Google it though. Sometimes I will actually look in a recipe book. But again, when I'm in a hurry, I just literally pull up the Pinterest app, and like for example, today I did, I think I said literally fast chicken breast recipes. And what popped up was all these all these stovetop chicken breast recipes. And so, and I had some familiarity with some of them, or the style of cooking. And so, all I did was I pulled up one that looked like stuff I had kind of in my kitchen, just a stovetop kind of pan-seared chicken. I literally had 2 chicken breasts, but they make about 4 servings due to their size. I tried to make sure they weren't more than about an inch thick in any space. There were a couple spots that were an inch and a half, so it did take longer for those edges to cook, so I had to be careful to not burn the other side. And some people, like, I noticed the recipe recommended using like a meat mallet to hammer it down so that it's no more than an inch, so it cooks evenly. You can do that. I certainly could or like even just you could push it down with something else. It doesn't even have to be a meat mallet. You can do like just something heavy you could even do like a rolling pin, like put the chicken in a bag and do a rolling pin to flatten it or whatever, or something heavier. I was too lazy, didn't really care. It wasn't like too thick in some spots, so I figured it's going to cook evenly enough, and it did. But yeah, that's up to you. Mine was actually, I always try to get as lean as possible, organic chicken. And usually I like to get at the farmer's market if I can. This was just from the store, but it's, it's fine if that's what you need to do. If you can find a deli or something, that's great, because then you have, or a local place, that's where you know more where your chicken's coming from. I prefer to do that. Sometimes you just don't have that option though. So I had chicken, I had frozen it previously, so I had thawed it over the last couple of days. It did take it a while to thaw, so that's why I fixed it today, but it was fine on the date and everything, and it looked good, it smelled good, all that, so it's fine. But it was perfectly lean. There were probably a couple spots I could have technically cut the fat off of, but it was like teeny tiny, and I didn't want to mess with it. So again, I was just trying to do as quickly as I could today. It was 2 to 3 tablespoons of oil to put in the pan. I used olive oil. It's funny because it actually said don't use olive oil because of the smoke point. But I was like, nope, I'm just using olive oil, and it worked fine. So I did 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil. What I did is I got my like 10-inch pan, one that could easily fit both breasts, but give them some space. So I put it on medium-high heat. On mine, that was about a 6, because mine has the numbers. So it's about a 6, is what I put it on. Excuse me. And then I let that heat, put the olive oil in it, let it heat up. When I knew it was ready to sizzle, I put about, I probably actually put more like 2 tablespoons of garlic. I know that's a lot. So I would say if you're not sure about the garlic, do 2 to 3 teaspoons. I just love garlic, so I did 2 tablespoons about, basically 2 heaping spoonfuls out of the little jar. And just let that, and you want to be careful because it will sizzle fast, but I wanted to just get the garlic in there and the aromatics before I put the chicken in. So I kind of rotated it around in the oil itself. And then I had already seasoned the chicken. So I just did paprika, salt, and black pepper. So all I did, I have a black pepper grinder. So I just ground it to about, I would say it probably ended up being about a teaspoon of black pepper. Probably 2 teaspoons, well, no, let's see, a teaspoon of black pepper, 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt. I used Celtic sea salt. You can use whatever you want. And then I did about, I'd say it probably ended up being about 3 teaspoons of paprika, smoked paprika. You can do whatever. I kind of just, I eyeballed it. I like to just do that, but I would say it was about those measurements. I just mix it in a little teeny tiny mixing bowl thing. I think you've seen them in my pictures before. I just have a teeny tiny one. So, and then I just, kind of shook with one hand and then rubbed down the chicken on both sides with the other, just so I only had one hand that was touching raw chicken. Put it down in the pan, laid it flat as possible on both. And then this was actually one thing I did like from the recipe. I know you're not supposed to mess with chicken or meat when it's cooking because you don't want to have to cut it open. You want to keep the juices inside. You want to just let it cook. Sometimes I'm so tempted to just look. I really just want to peek. It's like that part of me that just kind of wants to peek, which is funny because I don't actually like peeking at presents. I love surprises. So, but when it comes to food and stuff, I'm like, oh, is it, how's it doing? It's like that person who does the pancakes and you like lift them up and you're like, oh shoot, I just messed it up. So I have to resist the temptation. But what I did like was, and appreciate, was this recipe talked about that, of how, just leave it alone for 5 to 7 minutes on one side and then flip it and do another 5 to 7 minutes. One thing I did forget to do was the recipe said, do 5 to 7 minutes on one side, flip it, add a tablespoon of butter, and then do 5 to 7 minutes on that side. I did forget to put the butter in, but it turned out fine anyways, but it probably would have added some nice flavor. So if you want to do that, I like grass-fed butter. So that's up to you what you want to use, but I like that. But again, I actually, mine were thick enough on a couple sections. I had to kind of get creative to not burn one side, but leave the other. And it wasn't bad because it was only about 1.5 inches, but it would have probably been better if I'd evened it out. But it probably took more like 7 to 9 minutes on each side. So what I basically did, I did 5 minutes on one side. I flipped it, did 5 minutes on the other, flipped it back and did about 3 minutes on that side, 3 to 5 minutes on that side, then flipped it again and did 3 to 5 minutes. I had checked it in probably like the second or third flip to check the internal temperature. I have a meat thermometer, so I checked it. You want 165 on chicken is the best temperature for a chicken to make sure it's done. So I just stuck it in on the thickest part of the chicken, and it had hit about 150 to 155. So that's why I left it in about another 3 to 5 minutes on each side. And then I got the chicken out, and then you just want to let it rest for a few minutes before you even cut it open. Let the juices, that way that it gets moist. It locks in the moisture. It keeps it nice and fresh. You can do that with other meats too. That's great for steak and things too, is to just let it rest before you actually cut into it. Also, it's best if your meat is at room temperature before you put it in the oven, or you don't want it to sit out a long time, but you do want to take it out of the fridge and give it about 5 to 10 minutes out of the fridge before you start cooking it, so that your meat has the same temperature throughout before you even start cooking. Because if you don't, that's sometimes why you get edges that burn, because it's waiting for the inside to be done, because the inside was so cold, whereas the outside had already started to warm up. So you want to try to give it some time before you even start cooking. So I had done that a little bit. And they were fully thawed today by this point. Because they were not yesterday. And so then anyways, I took those out, let them rest. Then in the saucepan, I turned down the heat and I added about a half a cup of sour cream. And again, I don't even know how this is fully going to taste because I just sort of improvised. But I added about a half a cup of sour cream, a couple tablespoons of like a more natural tomatoey ketchup that I have, because I was thinking kind of like, the cream and the tomato. And then I added as probably a half to 3/4 cup of shredded aged Parmesan. And I let that cook and mixed in the leftover garlic and basically deglazed the pan kind of thing. And then I added these plant-based, they're called Miracle Noodles. They're made from basically like water and cognac flour. And they're really good. They're more of a plant-based noodle. I have the spaghetti noodle style. So I dumped in 2 packs of those. Makes 4 servings. That way it matched like the 4 servings of chicken. And then I just let it heat through, cooked, like kind of stirred it around. And then that was it. That's what my dinner is tonight. So that's basically what it was. And again, I did not fully follow the recipe, so there's plenty of recipes out there, but those are some good basics to remember. But yeah, you can cook how you want. That was stovetop. I haven't really cooked stovetop in a while. I usually do crock pot or oven just because I don't have to keep a constant eye on it. But tonight it was actually faster to do it this way. And I was able to work on some other things. I think what helped is I was able to leave it alone and just let it cook and go and do other stuff while I was waiting. So that was good. But yeah, so anyways, that's pretty much it for the nutrition today. So that was good. I'm hoping to make some more smoothies or smoothie bowls this week. Do some intentional exercise right now. I'm still so drained and exhausted. But again, my goal for the week is 2 days of 30-minute increments. So basically 2 days this week, I want to work the equivalent of 30 minutes during the day, whether that's 30 minutes all at once during that day or like 10, 10, and 10 or 15 and 15, whatever it looks like. I still have that goal, but I also realized that recovering from sickness, I need to be really careful what I'm doing. Stuff with the lungs, I need to be careful with because I don't want to set off any coughing stuff or get any sort of things landing in there. Probably more indoor exercise just to not expose myself as much to the outdoors and the cold. Even though we've had some better temperatures, it's just better to be safe. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. Again, not weighing in every day, not putting that pressure on, and just seeing if the third week is consistent to the other two. So far, so good. And I did not test it today, so we'll see. Otherwise, I think that's pretty much it. And so I hope some of that recipe ideas maybe helped you out, or so I've now got my turkey bean chili from yesterday that's ready to go for the week. I now have my chicken breast and noodles, and I have stuff for both smoothies and then smoothie bowls, and then possibly even overnight oats. I haven't done those in a while, but I do have the stuff for them, so I might do those. So yeah, I feel like it's going pretty well. I need to get myself back on a good sleep schedule. Obviously, I'm still recovering from sickness, need to stay hydrated and just be careful on that. I'm keeping out the sugar overall so far. I did have a couple dark chocolatey things they had today, but they were small, and mostly just chocolate. I probably did have a little extra, but it's been good overall today. So, all right, I will leave you all there and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.